Sylvia, you can start again the signal.
Sorry. Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Healthy Hearts session. My name is Sylvia Ofovbe, and I'm going to be the facilitator for this session. So how is everyone doing? How was your day? How are we all coping? The weather's changing, everything's changing. How are we adjusting to it? I know this period can be quite difficult for a lot of people because now we have shorter days and longer nights. So is that something that is positive for you or negative for you? Are we adjusting fine to this change? Can I get comments on this, please? Okay, Dr. Hibbah.
I'm not having enough sleep. So.
Even with the longer days, the longer nights?
I don't know. There's something about the weather that's, I don't know. Well, personally, I'm not sleeping properly. I can't explain why, but yeah.
Okay, yes, I love the comments I'm getting in the chat. Yes, someone says it's really cold, not eating on time, eating too late. I personally struggle with eating too late. I struggle with eating too late because my mind is trying to adjust to the fact that it gets dark early. So in my head, I'm like, oh, it's probably still like 5 p.m. I can still eat, but it's actually really late. And yes, it's getting very, very cold as the day goes by. Yes, and something that a lot of us don't know, this is the period, because of the cold weather and everything, we tend to binge a lot. We tend to eat a lot of things that we're not supposed to eat. In fact, it's been scientifically proven that during this period, people tend to move towards foods that are high in sugar and all of that. Yes, drinking a lot more hot drinks will help. True, very true. In fact, because of this, that is why today we have Dr. Hibbah here, who's going to talk to us about our relationship with food. What kind of relationship do you have with food? Because I personally feel that's the only way we'll be able to basically get better with this weather and not falter and stick to sugary food, and then we add weight and things like that. So I'm going to hand over to Dr. Hibbah.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. I'm just going to share my slides now, and then we can make a start. Yes, so Sylvia, you're right. It's one of the reasons why I thought we should discuss our relationship with food, but also because in the last 2-3 sessions, I think that the session that we did, intermittent fasting, there was a lot of talk about having a healthy relationship. If you can remember, those of you who were on this call, you remember Dr. Ojuan emphasized the need for us to have a healthy relationship with food before we think of doing intermittent fasting. And I know that that session was really popular. A lot of people want to start engaging in intermittent fasting. So I went like, okay, what does it actually mean to have a healthy relationship with food? And so that is what we are going to focus on. It's going to be a discussion. And then if there is time, then we can do another session. I'm thinking about doing this. And if we have time at the end, we look at strategies, how we can have a better health relationship with food, or how we can stop emotional eating. If not, this is meant for us to evaluate our own relationship with food. So I'm going to be asking some questions, and I'd please ask that you engage. You don't need to unmute yourself, but I would need you to record your answers. And that is the only way you can tell if you have a healthy relationship with food or not. Right. So do you have a good relationship with food? Is my first question. Now, let me just throw that out there before I go on. How many of us think we have a healthy relationship with food? We can put the response in the chat. Okay. Yes, Sylvia. What do you think?
I personally think I have a good relationship with food. I think from the Sahara TLC challenge that we did after we had a similar topic, I was able to adjust and I can say that I have a good relationship with food, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I don't eat because of my emotions and things like that. Yeah.
Okay. Daniel, what about you? Do you think you have a healthy relationship with food?
Yeah, I put my answer in the chat, but
Oh, you did. You did. Okay.
Yeah, it's a pretty decent.
You think it's pretty decent. Okay.
Even though I
All
live in
right.
that. Oh, yeah, pretty
Okay,
decent.
so we're going to go through this session, and then afterwards you can tell me if your answers have changed or not. Okay. Now, have you heard people using expressions like, I love goat meat? I can never eat without goat meat. People use words like, I love cake. Cake makes me so happy. Some people would say, I feel so guilty because I ate a piece of cake. Emphasis is on those words: love, like, hate, guilty. A lot of us use these words when we are trying to express, our eating habits. Now, is this okay or not? These are strong emotions like I love, hate, sinned, cheated, guilty, are very strong emotions that we tend to use with people. You love people, you love your mother, you love your father. You use this with human beings, okay? But when you tend to use this when you're describing food is not a living thing, then there is an issue because it is not going to reciprocate that relationship to you, okay? Right, now let's go through the quiz that I said I have so that people can assess their own relationships. Now, there are a number of stages to this exercise. So I'm going to read out some statements, and I want everyone to reflect on your own eating behaviors or your motivation for eating and give yourself a score. What score do I want you to give to yourself? So when I read out the question, and then you think that the question applies to you, give yourself a score of 1. If it doesn't apply to you, give yourself a score of 0. Okay, and I'll give you an example. You eat when you are stressed. You eat when you have things to do. So if you think you are that kind of a person who eats whenever they are stressed, like you have work to do, you have exams to do, then the first thing that comes to mind is, let me grab something and eat. Give yourself a score of 1. But if you are not that kind of a person, give yourself a score of 0. Yeah. At the end of the day, we are going to sum up these scores. So I would like for you to keep the scores, somewhere that you can easily tally the scores, the numbers. So number 2, you eat as a response to your emotions. So there might be some subtle differences, but they are not saying the same thing. So the first one, what did I say? You eat when you are stressed, when you have things to do, like you have exams to do. If you're a student, you have a lot of work to do. And then the first thing that comes to mind is, let me just eat. Now, the second one says you eat as a response to your emotions. So when you are sad, you tend to eat. When you are annoyed or angry, you will go for food. When you are disappointed, you are lonely, you are empty, you feel empty, you are anxious, you are tired, you are bored. First thing that comes to mind is, let me grab something and eat. It doesn't matter what it is. It can't even be a healthy meal. But if this describes you, I'm not talking about unhealthy foods only. It can even be a fruit or a vegetable. It can be a drink, a cup of tea. If this is who you are, give yourself a score of 1. Especially boredom. A lot of people, when they are home and they're bored, then the next thing is, let me grab something to eat. You seek solace in food. And I like that photograph there, because a lot of the times when we watch movies, this is a typical scene when someone really is feeling so sad. Then the next thing is to grab a tub of ice cream or cake or biscuits. Again, even if it's healthy food, but you are seeking solace in food, please give yourself a score of 1. Now, if you are that person who has trouble losing weight and you know for a fact that this is due to the way you eat, give yourself a score of 1. I know so many people who are aware of what is causing their weight gain. You know, but you're just struggling to lose weight. Please give yourself a score of 1. No judgment here. This is supposed to be a learning exercise, because at the end of the day, we all want to have a better relationship with food. But how do you have a better relationship with food? You first have to be aware of your status at the moment. Are you having a healthy relationship? Is it really bad? Is it intermediate? And then once you know that, then you can take steps to make some changes towards having a better relationship with food. Because there's evidence to show that when you don't have a healthy relationship with food, you can develop eating disorders. You know, it's been linked with so many poor health outcomes. Your eating is out of control, so you can't stop yourself from eating. Again, no judgment here. But if you know this is who you are, you can't control yourself, please give yourself a score of 1. Yes, Sylvia.
Okay, so for this particular question, I know I might be speaking on behalf of some of the ladies here. Yeah. So there's some times that during the menstrual cycle, probably either you're ovulating or you're menstruating, and you tend to eat a lot. You do not have the control. But when you're not in that phase, you eat normal. So do you think it would be best to put a 1 or just leave it as a 0?
Okay, so the last time I did this session, this question was asked again. And so first of all, I want this to be your typical, so if, you know, like your everyday lifestyle is such that irrespective of what is going on, whether hormonal changes, you still want to eat, you can control yourself, then this really applies to you. But having said that, even when it's that menstrual cycle, there are ways to develop a healthier relationship with food. So in fact, even if that is the only situation, please give yourself a score of 1, because there are ways you can adopt healthier relationship even during that period, so that you are able to control your eating behavior. So yes, let's assume that this applies to all groups of people, whether in your menstrual cycle or not. Yeah, because yes, you can do something about that as well. You eat to feel happy. You eat to feel happy. Notice there are differences here. I'm not saying the same thing. There are subtle differences. So you eat to feel happy. This is really close to this statement. You eat when you feel happy. So the first one is you eat to feel happy, but this time you eat when you feel happy. So you hear good news and then you want to eat. A lot of us do this. A lot of us do this. Yes, I hear you. Someone says, I do this. Yeah. You are fascinated with eating. There are some people who are just fascinated with eating. Yep. Especially to, yes, this refers to the previous question. Yes. So you are fascinated with eating food. Oh, I know people really close to me who are just fascinated with eating. You use emotionally charged words to describe food or eating. Once you start using words like I feel guilty, I love cake, those strong emotionally charged words, which we tend to use, with our loved ones. Once you tend to use this to describe food, please give yourself a score of 1. You eat even though you are rightly full. You've just had your dinner. You know very well you are full, but then you still eat. You know you're rightly full, but you can't stop yourself. You still eat. You think of eating even though you are rightly full. Now, the difference between this and the previous question is you actually do it. So the previous one says you eat even though you are rightly full, but this one says you think of eating. So you might not go ahead to eat, but you actually think about it. You're like, oh, I might do with another piece of chicken. Even though you are rightly full, you're still thinking about eating. You have random food cravings out of the blue. If you have random food cravings out of the blue, please give yourself a score of 1. It doesn't matter which time of the month it is. Please give yourself a score of 1. Once it's random, give yourself a score of 1. If not, give yourself a score of 0. Oh, okay. That ended faster than I thought. So now let's sum up our scores, please. Let's put these scores together. Is there a question? I see someone's hand up. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask a question? Or was that to say that is you? Okay, right.
Yeah, it was.
Okay. Please give yourself a score. Tally the numbers. Not sure if people want to share, but it's okay. You don't have to share because we're going to go through what that means. Okay, I've seen someone with a score of 4. Not bad, not bad. Okay, now let's explain. Let me explain. Apologies, I have a co-speaker who's just woken up to join me. Yes, so let me explain what these scores mean so that you can decide for yourself whether you need to do something about your relationship with food or not. So the first group, which is 0 to 2, would be the best group. This should be the ideal group you want to find yourself in. Okay, if you have a score, is there anyone who had a score in group A? Anybody on the group who thinks that they fall in group A or group 1?
Yes, I have a score in that.
Oh, great. I need to clap for. I can see who is speaking because that is the ideal. You have a healthy relationship with food. People in group A have a very healthy relationship with food. And I'm really pleased that we have someone on the call who says he or she falls in that group. And I'm going to call on you in a few minutes for you to share some experiences with us. Now, group 2, score between 3 and 5 is also okay. It's also not so bad. It's actually a lot of people, research shows that a lot of people tend to be in group 3 and 4, which are the unhealthy ones. But if you are in group 2, that is really also okay. Now, group 3, people with scores between 6 and 8. And I expect that a lot of us will have scores between that group, group C and group D. What are the implications? What does that mean? So group C, you have an average to poor relationship with food. Okay, so yes, as I mentioned, a lot of people tend to be in that group. And so it is highly important that you look into addressing this, which I'll be talking about. You really need to do something about it, because if not, you decide to go onto a weight loss program, or you want to have a healthy lifestyle, and you don't address those underlying issues, you will not achieve your goals. You get frustrated along the line, and then you will stop. If you want to do intermittent fasting and you are in group C, you will not succeed. You need to do something about your relationship with food before you actually start thinking about doing intermittent fasting or just going on to a healthy lifestyle. Okay. And then group D, or the 4th group, you have an extremely unhealthy relationship with food. This is this could be associated with attachment issues. It's so deep that speaking to a nutritionist would not solve it. So these are the people who would have to really have sessions with, psychologists, or because the issues underlying the score it's something that would take time. It's not just a matter of having 1 or 2 sessions with a nutritionist and then you get to the bottom of it. You need help. You need help because the issues are compounded in, as I mentioned, attachment issues, psychological issues, people who are going through a lot of issues that they might not even have thought about. It could be anything to do with their life, outside of their lifestyle. It could be work, it could be family issues, it could be so many other issues that needs to be addressed before one can achieve anything. And anything to do with, and this doesn't just apply to diet, it has to do with everything in life. For you to be productive. Yes, Sylvia, please. Yeah, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, so there was one question that said, if you have trouble losing weight due to the way you, if you have trouble losing weight and you are aware of this, that it's due to the way you eat. So what if out of all the questions, that was the only one that the person has an issue with? Would that still make the person fall under category group A and make that person have a healthy relationship with food?
Yes. So as long as, these things are estimates, you at the end of the day, you just want an estimate of someone's, or a proxy of someone's relationship with food. So that should not just be the only thing that determines success. And that's why we went through 10 of 12 questions. So if that is the only thing, it doesn't make you perfect. I mean, the fact that you even know, Sylvia, that you have an issue with that is a step in the right direction, so it means that something can be done about it. Even though I'm currently saying that if you are in that group, that means you have a healthy relationship with food, and to every problem is having that awareness of the issues, you're having, or knowing what is causing. You're trying to lose weight and that it's because of maybe the time that I eat. I have a friend who can't stop taking Coke. So that that's the problem. Then really, you know the issue. So it's about working with the nutritionists or the dietitians, and you working on yourself to be able to overcome that challenge. But if you compare this person, let's say, this was you, to someone who is in group 4, who scored 1 in all of these questions, then you know that the person's issues would take a while. The person would need more support for the person to overcome these challenges. I mean, just that issue, I think, is something that you really can do something about.
Okay.
If you joined our intervention, you know, and a lot of people, Sylvia, you were there, had that kind of issue, but they were able to get the support to be able to overcome a challenge like that.
Okay.
You know, it takes discipline. It takes support. Support is very important. So people like that might just need social support, and they will be able to overcome it. But people in group 4, social support, discipline is not enough. There were people who did not succeed in the intervention because by just seeing the photos we put in the chat, you remember I shared those experiences. They said they felt sick. But just looking at the pictures of the food, you know, these are people who have deep underlying issues that would take time to unravel. You know, so people like that, a nutritionist, a dietitian will not be able to support you. You speak to your GP and they would immediately, you know, tell you to go and see exactly an expert psychologist, a psychiatrist, depending on what issues these are. And until you address that, or once you do that, which will take some time, then the nutritionist or the dietitian support can come in later after you have addressed the underlying issues. Yeah.
Okay. Someone is asking, says, what about eating disorders? Is that included in option D?
So, 1 second, please. Apologies.
Nice.
Yes, so if you have eating disorders, usually you work with your GP and then they'll refer you to the dietitian. So the dietitian would support you. However, even with eating disorders, there might be some underlying issues. And if a dietitian or a nutritionist realizes that those issues are there, they would make that recommendation. You know, a lot of people with eating disorders are supported by dietitians, yes. But when there are those deep underlying issues, then that is where I'm saying that you need more than, and sometimes when you speak to a nutrition expert the first time or second time, they are able to tell. They're able to, just this assessment can give you an idea of where you fall. So if we think we cannot support you, then you need to speak to your GP. Your GP will refer you to the appropriate expert to support you. Yes, but a lot of the times eating disorders are, people with that are supported by dietitians. They're put on plans and they are able to help them. Okay. Okay, so I believe everyone has an idea where they fall in terms of their relationship with food. I want to take some questions and then I go on to the next thing I want to talk about. Do we have some questions? Yeah. So the point I want people to take from this presentation is that if you see yourself in group C or group D, which means you don't have a healthy relationship with food, then food is not the problem. Please, the food is not the problem. If you're trying to lose weight and you cannot lose weight, it is not the food. It is not your lifestyle. The issues are deep. They are underlying issues that need to be addressed. And until you address those issues, so if you've been trying for so long to adopt healthier eating behaviors or a healthier lifestyle and you are not successful, please think through these questions. And if you fall in group D, speak to your GP and you might get some support. Okay? Okay. So when I started, I asked a question. I asked people to tell me if they had a good relationship with food. A few people said they did. Daniel, I remember you saying you had a pretty good relationship with food. Do you still think you have a good relationship with food? Which group did you fall in? Who has changed your position from before? Yes, and group 2. Okay, that's good. That's good. Yes, there was someone who fell in group 1. I really would want to hear from this person. I didn't see the name, but I remember someone saying that they fell in group 1 because there aren't too many people who tend to be in group 1. Is this person happy to unmute herself?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Can you hear?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay.
I was just wondering. So, Sylvia, can I ask this question, even though I'm the guest speaker, because I'm interested in her experience? Because a lot of the times when I do this quiz, a lot of people don't fall in group one. So I'm really intrigued about. Do you want to share how?
I'm also very interested.
Yes. How have you managed to have that healthy relationship with food?
I think having a healthier relationship with food actually started from my youthful days. When I was young, because in our culture then, they believe something that when you eat, taking in between is not something good for you. So I wasn't used to taking in between. Yeah,
you mean snacking? When you say taking,
no.
Okay.
Yeah, that's snacking. So if I will eat, I'll say I'll eat, when I was young, 3 times a day. But when it comes to snacking, I don't snack. I hardly do. And then as I started growing up, when I got married, I actually imbued that into my children. And anything that is not real food, I discourage them from taking it. So, and taking soft drinks, buying sweets.
Yeah.
I buy sweets for them only when they are celebrating their birthdays.
So once in a while. Okay.
Once in a while.
Right.
Just as a treat. Or to say you go out to buy cake, no, I don't do it. But fruits, yes, we do take fruit.
Yeah.
And then as I started getting older, I think I became wiser in the way I choose my food. And I eat only when I'm hungry.
Indeed.
And yes, and I do intermittent fasting. For instance, just before we started this program, I'd taken my evening meal, which is my last meal for the day. And I took my first meal in the day about 12:04. That's 12 in the afternoon. That was my first meal. So when I wake up, the first thing I do is to drink water. And then I go on working. By about 12, 11:30, 12, I eat my first meal. And I'm not hungry again until evening. So when I finish working, what I wanted to eat, I got it ready with my husband and I ate. In fact, I struggled a bit before I could join. And that's so until tomorrow again till around 11:30, 12, I won't eat. And in terms of my body system, I understand my body system. If I eat a particular food, for instance, I don't go out to buy soft drinks, like oranges, but I buy natural one. But for me to go to store to say I want to buy bottled one or something, the processed one, because I know a lot of sugar will have been added to it. And my body doesn't really, taking a lot of sugar doesn't gel well with me. When I want to take my morning meal, for instance, if I take porridge, I don't take it with sugar. And I realized that animal milk is not good. I feel bloated when I take it. So I take plant milk, which is all right for me. And I noticed that even when I was young, if I take in the evening, if I take something that is too sugary, or I take milk, I won't feel comfortable when I sleep. And when I wake up the following morning, I won't feel comfortable. It's like something has not digested. And so for that reason, I don't take anything sugary, maybe at night or towards evening. And I reduce, if I take tea, I used to put sugar, but nowadays I don't put sugar when I take tea, which I take. Well, it's coffee I take maybe once in a day, or at all. I won't take. Like today, I've not taken coffee, so I'm not. So that's the way I go. And I realized that taking fruits, there are some fruits that actually contain a lot of sugar, and so if you take it, you need to reduce the amount you take. For instance, banana. Yeah, if I take it, not taking more than one a day, if I will take it at all. And I also realized that some fruits, when I take it, I struggle to go to toilet. And I started studying my body. What could have happened? And then I met my daughter's friend sometimes in 2014. She's an American. And anytime she wanted to take apple, she will peel it off. And some other fruits that has the back, she will peel it off. And I asked her, why are you doing this? You're supposed to be eating the back. She said, no, that my father is a farmer in America. My father will never allow us to take apple with the back, because most of the apple that we eat here, they are already, they have been sprayed so that they will last longer. And so their back sometimes is like glass. So I realized that when I take some of these fruits, I find it difficult going to the toilet. But since I, started doing that, if I wanted apple, I'll peel the back. Some other fruits, I'll peel the back and I'll take it. But when I go to Nigeria and I take apple, I don't have that problem, because the apple they eat in Nigeria comes from South Africa.
Yeah.
So sometimes it doesn't have that kind of glassy back.
Right. Yeah, well, thank you so much, Sylvia. Yeah. There's a lot she said there that I want us to dissect. But
actually, anyway. Yes. I think first things first, I must really praise you for your discipline. Like, you are very disciplined. You've been really disciplined. Like, even listening to how you understand your body so well, and you follow your body, you ensure that you don't take the things that affect your body. I'm just like, wow, I think I have the same issue with her. I should probably be like her. Can we switch? Yes, you're really, really disciplined. But then, speaking about the apple bits and having to peel the back of apple, there are other ways. We will definitely, I think maybe we might have a discussion on that probably later and come up with like tips of how to wash your apples or preserve apples to remove all the pesticides that come with it during the farming process and things like that. But eating the skin of your apple comes with it's packed with lots of vitamins. That is the fiber. You're literally removing the fiber, you're removing the roughages. And then again, one thing you did mention that you usually had issues going to the toilet. Imagine not having enough fiber. That might have been like, that is also like an issue, basically. So I think if you up your fiber intake, that will probably make you feel better, rather than taking out the skin of the apples and other fruits that can help you, that can provide fiber for your body. So we could probably come up with some
I was having that issue when I was taking those fruits with the back.
Those fruits, yes.
But without them, I don't have that issue. Again,
right.
Since I studied my body and the thing has been working for me. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, so like Sylvia said, we will come back another time and have a discussion on some of these issues to do with fruits and how to make them, cleaner or get rid of those pesticides. But a few positives that I really liked that Sylvia, please permit me to highlight. So she started by saying that she started adopting a healthy eating behavior from childhood, from her youth.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of us, I think I'm saying this because a lot of us on this session are adults, so we tend to forget about the children, we tend to give the children whatever they want to eat. But then, from what our sister has just said, she had that training from her youth or from her childhood, so these behaviors we need to start them from an early stage. For those of us who have already become adults, I'm always like, this is one of the best investments we can give to our children. We are always talking about, extra tuition, extra classes for our children, but we don't focus on these things. And how do we make our children adopt these behaviors, like our sister has just spoken, by being role models ourselves, making sure that we are doing the right thing ourselves. And that's the only way our children can learn from us. So it's become easy for her as an adult to eat healthy because she was trained like that. She started it in her youth, and as an adult, this has remained. Another thing, Sylvia, she mentioned was the fact that she doesn't have snacks. Again, this is not to say that we discourage having snacks, because you can have healthy snacks, but the fact that she talks about real foods. Yes, so in the morning, she's having real meal. What is a real meal? Proper meal would have some protein, some vegetables, some starch. Okay, we always emphasize having real foods because a lot of us will just have a cup of tea with white bread for breakfast, irrespective of when you take your breakfast. These are refined, white bread is refined carbs. So within an hour or two, we are hungry. When we are hungry and we are at work, what happens? We crave for unhealthy snacks. And that is how the snacking behavior, snacking unhealthy behavior comes in. So we like to mention here, and there was a recent paper that I shared in our group about researchers saying it is, healthier, or having real food or a heavy meal in the morning has been associated with weight loss. Okay, so there's evidence to show that if you eat well, and there's a question about time, and I'll come to that. If you eat well in the morning, everyone's time of eating is different. It depends on when you wake up. It depends on when you go to work. So, irrespective of when you are eating, but your first meal is a proper meal, heavy meal, rather than just a cup of tea, then you would prevent yourself from snacking on unhealthy things, because it keeps you full for a couple of hours. If you eat well with fruits, with vegetables, with your greens and with a high fiber diet, that would keep you full and sustained for a longer time, and you will not feel like craving or snacking on anything unhealthy, which is what our sister mentioned, and I thought I should really highlight. So if you have a very unhealthy snacking behavior, you might want to consider having proper meals, real foods, a plate that has some vegetables, has some proteins, has some starchy carbohydrates for your first meal. And then, having another meal later on when you get. Okay. Yeah. There were a lot of things she really highlighted, but I've forgotten that I really liked.
She actually did also mention that training she had from her youth, she's still instilling them into her children. She's still ensuring that instead of getting them candies and cakes, have a proper meal or have a healthy snack and things like that. So yeah.
Okay. I see a question in the chat box. Let me see. Or was it sent to me? It had to do with timing. Did you see a question on time?
So it says, what is the latest or earliest time recommended to eat in the day?
So the day we did our intermittent fasting session, we touched a bit on this. Okay, so we refrain from telling people eat at 7 a.m. or eat at 10 a.m. No, because we recognize that, people start their days at different times. Now, my first response is not in line with intermittent fasting. So if you're not doing intermittent fasting, you're just going about your usual lifestyle, then we recommend that you have your meal when you wake up, before you go to work, because there's evidence to show that when you don't eat in the morning, especially among children, then you tend to have headaches and you tend to have cravings and all of that. The evidence for intermittent fasting is different. So if you're not doing intermittent fasting, then yes, please do have a meal when you wake up, and that depends on when you wake up. Some people, there was someone on this call who asked this question the last time, that I tend to wake up at 11. Maybe the person works at night. So if you wake up at 11, then yes, your first meal could be 12 or 1 a.m. However, if you're someone who wakes up really early, 5, 6 a.m., I tend to have my breakfast at about 9 or 10 a.m., as soon as I get to work. Sometimes I take it along with me. And this is because I'm not doing intermittent fasting. So if you're doing intermittent fasting, then depending on which model you're following, so the 12 to 8, you might start your day at 12 a.m. because our sister mentioned that she does intermittent fasting. So yes, you have people who will tell you that my first meal was at 12 a.m. That is also absolutely fine because you are doing intermittent fasting. So there are no hard and fast rules about timing for the first meal. It depends on your schedule, what works for you. Okay, what works for you? What time do you wake up? What time do you work? What works for you?
Okay, yeah. There's another question. So someone says, please, what's the difference between craving and emotional eating?
So emotional eating, and I have a session which I really want to do, a full session on emotional eating. It's when you don't have a healthy relationship with food, all those things I spoke about, okay, then you tend to have emotional eating. But craving is just when you're craving for stuff. So that is just one little aspect of people might have emotional eating, but might not even really just be about craving. So craving is just a little aspect of emotional eating. It's not the same thing. It's not, people tend to use it synonymously. It's not. When you're an emotional eater, then yes, you could have these random cravings for certain things, but it's just a tiny aspect of emotional eating, which I want to address one of these days. I want to do a session on emotional eating and how we can stop emotional eating. So yes, next week we already have Sylvia doing a session, but yes, in the coming weeks, I'll come and talk about emotional eating and how we can stop emotional eating. Did I answer that question? The craving is just, one little aspect of emotional eating. So a lot of the times, no. A lot of the times, no, but there is evidence. So the next question is, does the body need the food we crave? There is research to show that sometimes when your body is deficient in certain micronutrients, so certain minerals and vitamins, then that can show, or that would manifest in the sense of cravings. There's evidence to show that, but it is not. A lot of the times, the random cravings have nothing to do with micronutrient deficiencies. And the only way you can know for a fact is if you do an assessment to know if you have some micronutrient deficiencies. Okay, so yes, there are instances where a micronutrient deficiency would result in cravings, but there are a lot more instances where, cravings are just random. They are just people who don't have healthy relationship with food who just tend to crave. Yes, Sylvia.
Okay, yeah, I think that question, I'm sure that person is asking that question from the perspective of how people say, oh, my body's craving sugar, I need sugar, I'm stressed, I need, some people make statements like that and say, oh, I need sugar, I'm stressed. If I don't drink sugar now, I'm going to faint or I'm going to have headache and things like that.
Yeah.
So I want to believe that's where that's coming from.
Yeah. And clearly you do know that you don't need that sugar like that. So a random craving like that is just unhealthy, people with unhealthy relationship with food, because your body really doesn't need that sugar like that. We have a lot more sugar and salt than we need, so your body cannot crave for things like that, like sugar and salt, when there's evidence to show that our daily intake of these nutrients or these foods are actually way beyond what the body needs. So if that is what the person is asking, then no, those cravings have nothing to do with your body's needs at all. Yeah, hopefully that question is answered.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you so much, Dr. Hibbah. Do we have any more questions?
Yeah, so I'll leave the emotional eating and how to stop emotional eating for another session. Yes, because we just have about 10 more minutes. Maybe we can, yeah.
Does anyone have any other question? Is there any other thing you would like Dr. Hibbah to clarify?
Oh, there was also the talk about last meal of the day. I think the timing. Again, we've said this so many times, again, it depends on your schedule, because some people bring in examples of people who do night shifts, because a lot of us, we don't work at the same time, so if you just work during the day, we do know that you don't want to be eating your dinner just before you go to sleep. Ideally, you want to leave a couple of hours, allow the food to digest before you go to sleep. So it depends on your schedule. You don't have to, these things are not like generalized for everyone. It depends on what works for you. Okay, we do know that you want to allow about 3 to 4 hours before you go to sleep. So, if I sleep a bit early, then I want my last meal to be around 5. But then someone might have his or her last meal around 7 because the person is not sleeping immediately. Again, what are you eating? Are you having, animal proteins? What are you having? If you're having something really light, then yes, just a bowl of salad, and you have it around 6 and you go to sleep at 8, then that is absolutely fine. But you're having a bowl of eba with all these lots of animal proteins and lots of vegetables, then you really have to make sure you eat this a bit early, maybe late lunch, allow it to digest so you can actually sleep very well. Okay,
yes. So I will take that as debunking the myth that says once it's 6 p.m., don't eat again, no matter what. Once it's 6 p.m., you can't have anything again. Don't eat anything again.
No, it is encouraged to eat early, but it depends on your schedule. So for someone who does a night shift, you can't say that to this person. The person is going to work, leaving at 9 p.m., and you're asking the person not to eat, so that person's schedule would change. So you would eat around 9 as if you were eating your morning meal because you're going to work. For nurses who do night shifts, you're going to starve if you have your last meal at 6 p.m. and then you don't eat anything. You're going to work throughout the night. Okay, so it depends on your schedule. As much as possible, yes. And we did a session on circadian rhythm. You want that to be fixed, and usually when it gets dark, then it's a way of telling your body that, it's time for you to settle down and sleep, to wind down and sleep. So yeah, for most of us who work during the day, you really want to have an early dinner. And that is why people peg this at 6 p.m. Yes, it is advisable so that you don't mess your circadian rhythm, which is just your body's natural sleep clock. So yes, for most of us, that is the recommendation. But it's not to say that then, you can never, if you sleep a bit later, maybe 6, 7 is not too bad. But for most of us who work during the day, yes, try not to have it too late when it gets dark. So Sylvia, is that answered?
Yes,
we don't have to make it so difficult or complex for ourselves because we all have different circumstances. I think we should rather understand the science behind it so that we do what works for us. Because some people don't sleep really early and are still active. People have, students are studying till midnight and things like that, so having group discussions. So, I think people like that can shift it to 7, but if you really are winding down at about 8 or 9, then yes, you want to have it a bit early, like 5 p.m., Okay. Is that answered?
Yes, that's answered. Yes. That's very fine. That's fine. Does anyone have any other questions for Dr. Hibbah before we round up the session? So I take it that from this session, we're all aware of what group we fall under, what relationship we have with food. Do we have a healthy relationship? Do we have an okay relationship, an unhealthy relationship, or an extremely unhealthy relationship? And it's not just knowing about what type of relationship you have. It's also knowing how to deal with it, how to handle it. So if you have an unhealthy relationship, you know how to tackle it now. You know the things to do to move further up the group. And also we know that if you fall under the category, under the group D category, having an extremely unhealthy relationship, please speak to your GP who will set you up with a team that can help you have a better and a healthy relationship. So, Dr. Hibbah, I'm going to hand over to you. Any last words?
Right. Yes. We still have 5 minutes. I just remembered another thing that our sister who shared her experience mentioned. Oh, and how did it just escape me? Yes. I like the fact that she said, she realized that few things didn't work for her. Yes, that is also really important for us to
knowing your body.
Know our bodies, So it might be that certain fruits, you eat certain fruits and you have a reaction, that is perfectly okay. That is why there's a variety of fruits and vegetables. It might not be an allergic reaction, but if you feel like you get bloated when you take something, then you just shift to something else. At the end of the day, we want to have a variety of foods. So if you can't have apples for whatever reason, find other fruits. Just make sure you vary your fruits and vegetables. A lot of the times we are just having one or two. That's what most of us do. Okay. And so that's why when we did our challenge, we challenged everybody to have a different fruit or vegetable each week. That really helps because the kinds of nutrients you have in one fruit, like banana has potassium, orange has vitamin C, and you want to make sure you are reaping all of these nutrients. So my key message is know yourselves, know which foods you kind of really react to or doesn't work for you, and then just try other ones. So apple is not working. What else do I want to try? Just keep trying other fruits and vegetables. Let us, people within our culture, just tend to focus on one or two foods. And I was like that myself, so I'll just
we tend to always play safe.
Play safe with what we know. So if it's just spinach and garden eggs, that is all we would tend to rotate within the week. Let us try to add in one new vegetable, especially the cheap ones, because of this current cost of living crisis. And then last week, Jasmine mentioned the fact that it is okay to have the frozen ones as well. She talked about tin ones. I prefer the frozen ones, which tend to be cheaper. Okay, if we don't always have to have the fresh ones with the current cost of living, frozen vegetables are equally good. Let's try and vary our diets to reap all the benefits from the variety of fruits and vegetables that we have, and other staples as well. Yes. Yeah, there's a comment by Yabo. Yes, indeed. And I will come back and do a session on how to stop emotional eating. So I will do that maybe sometime in December, because next week is already set. And then the first week in December is already set as well. So Sylvia, these are my parting message. So do you want to tell us what we're going to do next week?
Thank you very much, Dr. Hibbah. Yeah. So thank you very much for that amazing session. So I hope everyone will be able to attend next week's session. We look forward to talking about fad diets with emphasis on keto diets. I'm sure we're all familiar with keto diet because now it's the festive period, and I'm sure we're all going to eat a lot and have a lot of treats and things like that. And then come back January, everybody's going to try and eat healthy or stick to a particular healthy diet. Preferably, most people go to keto diets and things like that. So we're going to have a session on that. What do we think? Is it actually good for you? Should you be doing keto diet or any other type of fad diet? So please be here for next week's session. Thank you so much for joining today.
I just had this quote that I wanted to remind us of. I think I've shared it here before. Bad habits are like a comfortable bed, easy to get into, but hard to get out of. Healthy habits are learned in the same way as unhealthy ones, through practice. And by practicing, that becomes permanent. And I like the story Sister Yabo shared. She's been doing this all her life, and that is why she has a healthy relationship with food. So for those of us who don't have a healthy relationship with food, we want to start changing now. And then in the same way that we've become used to unhealthy ones, gradually we would be able to make healthy eating permanent for us.
Yeah, it's a gradual step, but we will all get there. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. So I will hand over to CAHN now.
Yes, Daniel. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening, and we hope to see you next week.
Thank you. Daniel on.
Okay, so I do know that we don't have Orlando today, unfortunately. So yes, Daniel, I thought you were going to sign off, but if not, then we might just do it ourselves. So on this note, Sylvia, please end it for us.
Thank you, everyone. It was nice meeting you all today, speaking to you all today. See you next week on another Healthy Heart session. Bye.
Bye. Have a good night.
Have a good night.